wholesome, life-fulfilling video incoming. So I have been on a quest for a while now, but recently I've been taking it pretty seriously. A quest to find the most distressing, disturbing, the most violent pieces of non-fiction ever written. The most violent novels, the most distressing books ever written. And I wanted to share with you over the course of a few videos just a sort of short list that I have come up with. Some of these books you may have heard of, some have had film adaptations, which I actually saw before I read the book in a couple of instances. And vice versa, there's some adaptations that have since been turned into TV shows or books that I read before they were, but anyway, I'm getting lost in the sauce. So this is a sort of short list. I'm going to start with about 5 of the most disturbing, distressing books. In the Miso Soup by Ryo Murakami. So, In the Miso Soup is a pretty simple story about a young man named Kenji, a young Japanese man. He's about 19 or 20, I can't really remember. He works as a sexual courier. Basically, he will walk around the seedy areas of Japan with foreigners who are looking to experience some of Japan's seedy underbelly. A sort of like a taboo tour guide. He makes a decent living and he's pretty happy in his work until he takes on an American client called Frank. And things get pretty wild pretty quickly. There's so much to like about this book. It's a relatively short, simple story, and for what is essentially a horror story, there's a lot of humour in there. It is actually quite funny. Mostly in the way that America is regarded by the locals in Japan. Like the brands are fetishized and all that, to the point where one local girl, like her main goal in life is to travel to Niketown in New York. Niketown, a now closed mall basically that sold Nike gear. So that's basically her wildest dreams that she has are to shop in America. That's what she aspires to be, a consumer in America. I won't say much about where the story goes, as the main goal of this video is I don't want to spoil any of these stories. I'd like to entice you into checking them out for yourselves, light a fire that maybe you want to go and see what this is about. But this in particular, in the Miso Soup, it's a delectably tense and weird journey. There is a scene that I won't even talk about it. There is a scene which is, even though it's sort of building to something, when the madness happens, one scene in particular, it is really, I put the book down. I really did, genuinely. I had to put it down and go, right, I'll come back to that. It's really intense. Blood Meridian. Right, okay, I'll get this one out the way early. Blood Meridian is the magnum opus of Cormac McCarthy, best known as the author of the similarly depressing The Road and of No Country for Old Men, which was famously adapted by the Coen brothers, and what I think is a rare instance of the movie actually being better than the book. I prefer the movie of No Country for Old Men to the novel. I actually couldn't finish the novel, to be fair. I don't know what that says about me, but yeah, I just wasn't into the novel. The book is much better. But anyway, I digress. This is a book, Blood Meridian, is a book it's often people's first thought whenever violent and disturbing literature is brought up. And I can absolutely appreciate why. The novel follows a 14-year-old boy, so right away we're in with like an underage boy. This underage boy has already perpetrated any number of unspeakable crimes. We will follow his exploits with the Glanton Gang, a group of outlaws who have been contracted to collect the scalps of Indians on the Americo-Mexico border. It's a lovely, wholesome book, this is. It's really, really, really sweet. The most notable character that you've probably heard of, if you're into literature and these kinds of novels, you've probably already heard of the most notable character, which is the enigmatic Judge Holden. Judge Holden is part of the Glanton gang. He's a 6.5 foot, I think, huge. I think they say 6.5 foot. He's a hairless, philosophizing right-hand man of the leader of the Glanton gang, of Glanton. Although he seems to be a law unto himself, even though he's seemingly the right-hand man of the leader, he really is a law unto himself. He's almost supernaturally intelligent. What a word, that's a horrible word to say in a Scottish accent. He's almost supernaturally intelligent, and on several occasions it is not too subtly hinted at that he is a serious danger to children. That's what we'll say, yeah. To say that he's the antagonist of the story, it would be true. Judge Holden becomes the antagonist, but that would downplay just how awful and malevolent and despicable just about every character that's focused on in this novel can be at times. There is very little in terms of redeemable human beings in Cormac McCarthy's Blood Red. It's also very written in such a lofty manner that it sort of washes over you, that you don't realise what you've just read until you've read it, because it's very wordy and it's so beautifully descriptive. Like I say, you don't even realise what it is you've read until you sort of snap out of it, snap out of the flow of the writing and realise what you've just read. Anyway, yeah, Blood Meridian, it's wild. There is a scene where they're ransacking a camp, which I won't go into it, but the descriptions of what they do to the innocent men, women and children of this town that they storm through it's pretty rough. American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Another heavy hitter that you no doubt have heard of in one way or another. They filmed there was a film. I think you may have heard of the film. I didn't know about whether or not I should include American Psycho in this initial list, as I have a kind of love-hate relationship with it. While I am a big fan of the ultra-violence, funnily enough, that's what I like about it. I'm a big fan of the ultra-violence presented in the cold, detached, almost sardonic way in which it is. I just find it hard to get on board with the ultra-descriptive, consumerist jargon, the writing style. I understand why it's written that way and why all that is there. And the novel's thesis really doesn't make sense if it isn't written in that way. I just struggle to push through it, personally. I think the way... Think of the way Tolkien, if you've read Lord of the Rings or The Hobbit, the way Tolkien will describe things, the furniture and the cutlery. Think of that, but just with 80s consumer products. Do you know what I mean? It's all Panasonic this and Ralph Lauren that, but to a nauseating extent. It's like, you know, the Panasonic Laserdisc 6 CD holder 357XJ, which was superior to the earlier 157369RGX YJ4, which only had 3 discs. You can imagine just that, a lot of that, just an endless stream of consciousness style of writing, and yeah, I mean, you can make your choice if that's for you. If you can persevere through all that, you will be treated to some of the most violent and brutally descriptive set pieces that I think I've ever read in a novel, to be honest. The set pieces are described in such a way that you almost feel culpable. Which, I mean, if you have any kind of consumerist tendencies, I guess is the point of all that endless product placement and all that. As I say, I have a love-hate relationship with American Psycho. Probably all the things that I've described as the reason I hate it is what's necessary for the reasons that I love it, if that makes sense. So yeah, American Psycho by Bret Easton Ellis. Haunted by Chuck Palahniuk. Haunted is ultimately a story about stories. The stories that we tell ourselves, and the stories that we tell each other to get by, to make us what we are, or into something we're not, to create us, to destroy us. It's basically a collection of short stories with a narrative backbone that connects them all. It achieves this beautifully. The way the narrative... It doesn't feel like a collection of short stories. It really does truly feel like just a proper narrative, which it is. Basically, you have a bunch of writers who have agreed to be isolated from society without any modern amenities for 3 months, so as to be able to finally write their masterpieces. This is it. They're going to lock themselves away from the world and finally write that magnum opus. All we know of the characters, we only know them by their nicknames that they've given each other based on the stories they have told. Names like Lady Bag Lady, the Duke of Vandals, the Missing Link, etc. They're locked up and isolated in an abandoned theatre by an old wheelchair-bound man called Mr. Whittier, who, to put it very, very lightly, is not what he seems at all. What follows, it's not so much a horror story. I mean, it is pretty fucking horrific, but I wouldn't really classify it as a horror story. It's each chapter follows a structure of initially giving you some of the main narrative with all of the characters, followed by a poem about one specific character, followed finally by a story being told by that specific character, usually about themselves. As you can imagine, the trapped characters have skeletons just clawing and busting out of their closets, and they very quickly descend. They descend into everything you can imagine, from self-mutilation to murder to cannibalism. But why? Why are they doing this? Why is it? Why? How could it be? Why could it be? What does it all mean, Basil? Read and find out. I can't tell you how much I love this book. Please read this book and find out for yourselves what it all is, what's going on, who these people are, because it's pretty macabre, and pretty morbid. Honestly, I can't tell you how much I love this book. It's great. Disclaimer, by the way, a small disclaimer. You may or may not have heard of the most famous story told in this novel, so I may as well give it a quick mention. It's a story that may have been told to you completely independent of this, but the person that told you might have never heard of this novel. It's become a story, like the Marilyn Manson having his ribs removed. It's become like a story. Did you hear about the kid that this happened to? So for that, I will give it a brief mention. The story is called Guts, and it is being told by a character called Saint Gut-Free. It involves 3 instances of, how to put this delicately, masturbatory misadventures. Yeah, like that'll do. One involves a carrot. Hot wax is involved in another story, but the main story is one involving a swimming pool filtration system, which pulls things. Not the thing, not that thing, other things. It pulls other things from behind. Yeah, the main character explains how he tries to swim to the surface before realizing that a snake, a veiny snake, is holding on to his butt from the bottom of the pool. And don't make me say it. I'm not going to say it. Just use your imagination. In fact, don't use your imagination. Read the fucking book and go and get traumatized for yourself. Gone to See the Riverman by Christopher Tiana. So I wanted to end with a lesser known, more recent story, Gone to See the Riverman, and by extension its sequel, Along the River of Flesh, released in 2021 and 2023 respectively. These books have recently rocked my world, to put it lightly. I I'll focus on the original so as to not give away too much of the plot, but my god, what a good horror story this is. It's such a good little story. It follows Laurie. The first one follows Laurie, a woman who is obsessed with true crime, and she's currently in a sort of pseudo relationship of sorts with Edmund Cox, a notorious and violent killer of women who, I mean, he would put Ted Bundy and Edward Kemper and Ed Gein and Jeffrey Dahmer, he would put them to shame, for real, like what it's described that he's done. Laurie lives a lonely, sad life with her mentally challenged sister. It's suggested that her sister is physically and mentally impaired after an incident from their childhood. Yeah, it's grim. And anyway, so she, through true crime documentaries and stuff like that and podcasts, she has become obsessed and has forged a relationship with this particular serial killer who's incarcerated. They write to each other constantly, and she confides in him her deepest, darkest secrets. He asks her to go and retrieve something from his secret shack in the woods, a shack that was never found by police. Then she has to take it to the river man, who lives in a shack at the end of the Hollow River, in the deep woods of a remote hick town called Killen. Yep, Killen. That was the killer's hometown. The killer was raised in Killen. What follows is, I mean, it's truly grim. It's an awful, heartbreaking tale. As with the sequel, the way that the author is able to reveal seemingly sympathetic characters to be just absolute monsters. It's so well done. It's really, really well done. I found myself absolutely hating characters, but at the same time, I couldn't stop myself from turning the page to find out more about what happens to them and their fates. It's very, very well done. It's like you're engaged with people. You're engaged and almost care about characters who are, you know, objectively awful people. But it's written in such a way that, yes, it's very, very well done. Gone to See the Riverman and Along the River of Flesh are everything that you could want from disturbing horror literature. It's creepy, it's insidious, it's gross, it's gory, it's splattery, it's distressing, it's demented, it's disturbing, nerve-jangling, and infuriating, all at the same time. And it's quite short. Both of this, and Gone to See the Riverman and Along the River of Flesh, are very sort of short stories. You could get them both done very, very quickly. So that is my initial shortlist. Would any of these books make your list? Yeah, let me know if there's any that you could suggest, because I'm really deep into this just now, so please hit me with suggestions. Next time, in the next video, I'm wanting to dive into, I guess I can tell you, yeah, we're going to do like The Wasp Factory, Stephen King's It, even the Marquis de Sade is going to make an appearance, the Marquis de Sade. I definitely had to save that for another video. I don't want to come straight in with the Marquis de Sade, the 120 Days of Sodom. So we'll do that next time in the next video if you're interested, or we won't if you just tell me you're not interested. Yeah, that's it. Done.
Ta-ta! And farewell.